Hello, SGD here, and I'll be starting a series, The Science of Symbols, I'll be calling it. This will be part one, and it will be a much longer extension of, about 2 years ago I did a earlier version of this, but given recent uploads and some other aspects, so I'll be extending it out because it's quite a bit of info. And the focus, especially on the first parts, will be on Athanasius Kircher, who's very important, prolific historian, a polymath, really, and 1602 to 1680, which puts it at this very important point. I'll put some links in the description. I'll try to remember also to put the Hermeticist series because will relate to all of these, but we'll be looking and focusing on this particular one of his drawings and the astronomical, geometric, metrological, arithmetic, and also extend that to musical connections because he did some really interesting stuff which will also connect to the Ionic and Doric systems of measurement, and also because they're also musical modes. But firstly, he was a Jesuit, and that's interesting. Just earlier, yesterday I put one up in regards to Gnosticism, and Ignatius Loyola, and anyway, but how this will connect not just to how so much of this is drawn from the Bible, but also how it connects to this is the most famous Freemasons, but these symbols which not exclusive to them, and that's much broader, much wider, and these symbols are of the craft as it is, and Masonry, but the essentially the ancient sciences, and how they also connect to the ancient world, to places like the Parthenon and the Great Pyramids as some examples. Now, this is another one of his famous drawings. We have the 72 points around there, which the Tetragrammaton and, well, the names of God, so 72, but then 216 also develops from that. We'll go into these later. Illustrations such as this one, which contains quite a bit. Firstly, well, the ratio, and we see the eye, but the owl or Bubo is Athena, but which is a symbol of wisdom. We see the moon goddess Artemis or Diana as well, with the both the eagle but also the peacock as Parvo, and also we see the sun god. Could call him Apollo as well, but he can be all-seeing eye. These simple, especially the caduceus, Kundalini, which is a Hermetic symbol, as in Hermes, a measuring rod, and, well, she's carrying the same thing. And so for instance, also very much into astronomy, so especially the quadrivium. And you also see the celestial, the globe of stars, or the constellations, not just the zodiac, but the constellations. You also see the celestial globe, or the earth, and then, well, the moon and the sun. So there we see sun, earth, moon, and stars. So we have this standard feature. For instance, this is another very interesting one because it connects quite a bit. And for instance, what do we have here? We have the dove, or the pigeon, Columba, 13 leaves in the olive branch, Cornucopia, and the Acanthus leaf. And these are all, so again, the constellation Columba, which is very strongly linked to the flood legends such as Noah, but more importantly, the much older legend of Utnapishtim, as told in the Babylonian Sumerian epic of Gilgamesh. I'll put a link in the description to the Columbian symbolism, which is not just ancient, but is embedded in so many other aspects, from tracing boards, but architecture, street plans, so many. Of course, the dove is a standard symbol in churches, for instance. Also, what do we have? Well, again, the Acanthus leaf, and this very, very important symbol. This is a huge story on its own. It's basically it's untold, and yet it's in plain sight. And also the Cornucopia. I'll put some links in the description. Recent series I did on these as well, and how it's connected, especially to Masons, Odd Fellows, but also, again, ancient traditions, and really just sort of everywhere. Yeah, so the Horn of Plenty, as it's called. This again, links in the description. Another one of his drawings, and what do we have again? The same sort of thing. So Apollo, the sun god, Hermes wearing the traveller's hat and holding the caduceus, the winged caduceus as well. We have Artemis, more like the depiction from the temple of Artemis, one of the seven wonders of the ancient world, or Diana, the moon goddess. And we also have a link to the three Cyclops, which worked with Hephaestus, typo there, or Vulcan, the god of metalworking, essentially. But with a focus on this one, and I did this a while ago, but there will be more to this particular, and looking a bit more deeper at it and drawing a lot more connections from this. And so, and for instance, connecting it to Freemasonic carpets and aprons and tracing boards, such as these here. So we begin with this one. Again, so how it crosses, and there's a lot of information, and it's scientific information in the essence of it. Now, there's a tendency to separate the esoteric from the exoteric, but if you look at people such as Kircher, Gunther, all these very important hermeticists of this period, they're all writing in the same language, whether it's in the quadrivium, it's in what would be separated. So I would say that, you know, to separate the exoteric from the esoteric is a mistake, because, well, they're linking these, and it's sort of like, oh, this is just plain, you know, math and science, and the esoteric is all ritual and all this other spiritual stuff. Well, no, they're very strongly connected, and that's why the masters of this always wrote in the same language, in the same symbols. And it's really important, because so for instance, you typically see in a Hollywood movie, they draw the pentagram to do whatever they're doing. Well, how do you draw a pentagram? You need to draw it properly, and you can't draw a pentagram unless you know geometry. And all the symbols that are connected with it are astronomical symbols. You need to understand these. So to go into that area and not have an understanding of the quadrivium, and to separate these two is you know, it's like trying to make, well, you just can't do it. It can't be done, because this is the language that they wrote in. And then they also wrote in, let's just say, the more mystic aspects of this as well. But this is the foundation stone of it. And, well, for instance, the Pythagorean schools and earlier Egyptian, the mystery schools, and what's connected in those. So we'll begin like this. What's this relatively modern painting of Pythagoras, but still the guys in the know are writing in symbols. And so for all the compass and square, that's just a giveaway. We see the globe there, the lyre and the music, and also this tree. But how does this connect to this? And first we see, what's this guy doing? Well, he's holding the compass, and he's got 3, 4, 5. That's Pythagorean. That's Pythagorean knowledge, and it's one of the most important things we learn at school, because we see this same 3, 4, 5. Now, 1, 2, edge length, 1, 2, 3, the edge length of that square, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the edge length of this square, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a 3, 4, 5 triangle, but it's also one of the most elegant and simple proofs of Pythagorean theorem. So there's, again, a lot of lovely math in there, in here as well, plus the checkerboard, but this connects directly to that. And, well, there we see close, 3, 4, 5 triangle, understanding Pythagorean theorem. You can't do the craft, you can't do construction, you can't do geometry. This is like, you know, this is debate, one of the most basic, but also most profound, most important of them. And that's why it's so important, the Pythagorean theorem, but also the Pythagorean schools, and the Masons of old, and including people like Kircher, who was not an active Mason in that he was a practicing stonemason, but he did pass on. This is what's just essential. So Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and 3, 4, 5. This is the first Pythagorean triplet, it's called, because 3 squared 9 plus 4 squared 16 equals 25. So this is the first of the Pythagorean triplets that works for all triangles, but this is where you have the whole numbers. This is why the 3, 4, 5, and then the 5, 12, 13 is the second Pythagorean triplet, and these are why it's so important and reoccurs across the world, across ancient sites, for instance, Stonehenge and many, many other places, including, what's he holding? A pyramid, and what it's in the pyramids as well. And it's a lovely series of connections. So we have the Great Pyramid there in the background, and Khaphre's pyramid here towards the front. Now, Khaphre's pyramid is in proportion. It's a 3, 4, 5 triangle there. So that's the first reference to it. Now, if we go into the upper chamber, or the king's chamber, it itself, did a recent video have a vesica and so much other stuff, but the 3, 4, 5 triangle is embedded in here as well. And this is often described as an accent, but we do know it's even in old papyrus that the Egyptian ropes, they use this to measure land. Now, it's argued that they didn't have an understanding of Pythagorean theorem. It's not clearly written down, no. But the Sumerians, Babylonians at the time did understand it, and they were contemporary with the Egyptians here. So it's more than reasonable to say that yes, they did have an understanding of it, because their very close neighbours had an understanding of it, and some much more recent, in their geometry is written in their clay tablets. They've even got some really nice trigonometry as well. So the 3, 4, 5 triangle in the pyramids as well. And so Pythagoras, did he really invent this? No, we know that he didn't. It's still sort of said that he did, but we find that in, is it Plimpton 322 or these other clay tablets from Sumer and Babylon? Yes, they knew this, they did. And of course, Pythagorean theorem, again, there's these, especially that 3, 4, 5 triangle is one of the loveliest, simplest proofs of it. We see it's a very important feature in Freemasons as well, but also in the cathedral builders. And again, the compass, the square, and even this particular compass is pointing at the protractor, or the understanding of degrees. But there we see it, and it is just it's a constant. But also, for instance, in this tracing board, what do we have? We have the 3, 4, 5 triangle, and again, that they're showing one of these proofs to, and also, it's also in this board here. And so, for instance, we see it there, and we see it there. Very, very important. Now, we also have what's here above. He has a triangle. Now, it's often said that a triangle is not a pyramid. They're two separate things. But now let's look at the triangle, and how does that connect to this particular board? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and what do we have? 1, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, which is the Tetractys. These dots, which so important. The Pythagorean swore an oath on the Tetractys. It was one of the most important sacred symbols, along with the pentagram in the Pythagorean schools and that whole particular area. And it also does point to some very lovely other geometry. So, for instance, if you can see, there's the Star of David in there, for instance. That's one aspect of it. And that geometry comes out of the vesica and out of the seed and flower of life. It's embedded in this very important sacred geometry. And so, when 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals plus 4 equals 10, and there's nice, now in Kabbalist and Jewish mysticism, that's the tetragrammaton, or the name of God, which I mentioned earlier, which also Kircher did with 72, and which gives us 216 as well. So these just lovely numbers just keep appearing over and over. But we'll also see that, so these are two other, so you have two versions of these tracing boards, and the tetragrammaton, we find that there, and we see it here. And of course, across the Hermeticists of that period of Kircher, just before him and directly following, always included these symbols in their artworks as well. And next we have, so if you focus down on this angel, what's he doing now? This is arithmetic, and I'll leave that for the next part. I'm coming up to 15 minutes, but these boards, lovely knowledge in here. It's very profound concern with geometry, arithmetic, music and astronomy, and especially weights and measures, because this is Hermeticism. Hermes, a god of weights and measure, the god of knowledge, just like Thoth, god essentially of the sciences. And it's okay, end of part 1, and hope you have a good one. Next part coming soon.